Hey everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Mean Show. I'm your host, Kristen Filipkowski, and I'm here in my living room once again. I someday hope to have a studio, but for now, I'm in my living room. I am so thrilled to introduce you to our guest today. Her name is Margot Krasny. She is a former actress, a former sculptor, a former ad gal in the Mad Men days, a Mad Men era of advertising. So you won't want to miss that part of the conversation. She's also an author. She wrote a book called Speak Up: How to Say It with Confidence. It's a landmark public speaking book, which is obviously a topic she's an expert on. She still runs a business that focuses on helping companies and businesses with their communication and public speaking. So when I'm 83, I really hope that I am still working and able to make the huge contributions that she's making. Um, you won't want to miss this conversation. She has such amazing perspective on midlife in particular, because she made a huge change in her career and her life when she was approximately 50 years old. Um, so I'm just thrilled that we had the opportunity to speak. She also wrote an essay on the website meanmagazine.com. So you could also check that out, and also look for all of her links and all the information to find out more about Margot in the show notes. So without further ado, here is my conversation with the wonderful Margot Krasny. Margot Krasny, welcome to the Mean Show. Thank you so much for joining me today.
And thank you for having me. This is lovely.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So you are in New York City, correct?
Absolutely.
What
Right
what
now it's
area?
gray outside, but New York City. Yeah.
Oh, is it? What
Yes.
area of the city are you in?
Um, I'm in what's called the Upper East Side, where I moved here about 6 years ago. I'm basically a downtown girl,
Oh,
um,
really?
but I sold my loft and moved uptown when it was age appropriate. Let's put it that way.
Okay. How do you like the change? How's it working out?
It works well for me now.
Hmm.
It would not have worked well 10 years ago, but it works well for me now.
Really?
It's
What's
more
that?
residential. I've had a number of careers, to
Yeah.
say the least. And the last two, I was in lofts, and that was appropriate for what I was doing. And then at a certain point, I brought the business slowly down and changed lifestyle, and this works much better now.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Well, I'm glad you mentioned all the careers that you've had, because I want to talk about all of that.
Oh, dear
Um,
Lord, yes.
yeah. First, I'd like to just dive into how we started talking. I discovered that you had, you know, a year ago, a little more than a year ago, when the pandemic started, you were very concerned that this was going to be a pretty
It.
terrible experience for you.
Yes.
You had a pre-existing health condition, and you're also like obviously a very vibrant, active person with a active social life. And
Not as much on the social life anymore.
okay,
That's quieted down, but
okay,
who knows?
okay, but it sounds like the experience was different from what you expected,
Much
and
different,
I'm curious
much
to
different.
hear what you expected and then what actually
Well,
transpired.
it's interesting because the first article I wrote, which you don't have, but way back, right, was about the fact that I didn't expect to survive. You know, I have COPD. Uh, they were talking about anyone with a lung condition and etc. And I'm hearing the ambulances go by morning, noon, and
Uh,
night. And I wasn't the only one. There was this, I was spending all my time washing everything, including grapes.
yeah,
I mean, you just
yeah.
was scrubbing everything down. And the city was piling up with corpses. And, you
Oh,
know, I was, I couldn't believe that I would, make it through. I'd hung a, um, a little bag with my meds and all my, in case I'm carted away, that everything is in this little bag if they have to take me to the emergency room by the door.
Oh my
So this
God.
was the original month or two. And as things went on, um, I live alone. I have my whole life, and I'm very comfortable being alone, which was a tremendous help.
I can
And I'm
imagine.
also, as I say in the article that you put up, uh, I'm a window cat. I'm an indoor person. I'm a window cat. So that was fine. I was fine with that. And then I reached out to friends, and thank God for FaceTime because I could be with them in some way.
Mhm.
And I just found I have deeper relationships with certain people that I would never have had. We would have had lunch here and there, but it
Mhm.
became more of a weekly thing. And I got an extraordinary amount done in this period of time. Um, and so the transition now to quote normal, whatever that's going to be, because I don't expect it to be back to what it was, whatever the new normal will be, um, is almost harder than before when it was very clear cut. You can't do this, you can't do that. You knew what you had to do.
Yeah.
And now we're transitioning to the next stage. But it certainly was not for me. I didn't lose anyone close to me. I had some friends who were risky and came down with it.
Wow.
But they've all survived, thank God. And so it was okay. What I can't get over are the people who, and I know I'm running on. You've asked one question, I haven't
No, I
stopped.
want you to I wanna
Okay.
hear all of it.
I can't get over the people who are complaining when you think about the people, just say World War II, who hid out for 2 years or 3 years, and Frank. I mean, and then we're bitching because it's 1 year of having to wear masks and be inside. I mean, it's for those who had to go to work and those who really were suffering because of loss of job, that I get,
Yeah.
but not the people who are complaining because they're entitled to having drinks or doing whatever. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Anyway,
No,
that's my whole rant of the
no,
day.
I agree. I agree with that. I mean, it's been difficult having, trying to homeschool a child for the past year, but honestly, I'm grateful that it's it's sort of easing up and, it was I would rather have 1 year of a little bit of, inconvenience than for this to continue to go on because I demanded that I needed to, go have drinks or go
It just
to a
doesn't
dance
make
club or
sense to me.
whatever.
It doesn't
Yeah.
make sense, you
But so
know.
you actually sounds like from the essay, which everybody should go read on the Mean Magazine site, you really had a vibrant sort of inside social life going on
I
while
had
you
much more
were
than I have at this particular moment because people are disappearing right and left. But
really and
yes, but everyone was sort of in the same position. In my world, was in the same position. So you know, an hour on FaceTime while we're cooking, or
yeah,
a dinner every Friday night, or whatever, became standard, practice. It's it's leaving, and it takes
yeah. So,
it's leaving now. So that's the next stage of how do we maneuver the next period of time.
yeah, and do you what do you think will change now? Do you think that you'll get out more than you did before, like become less of a window cat and more of an actual like
Well,
outside cat?
I've always been a window cat.
So that's probably
So,
not gonna change.
so but I am going to a museum on Wednesday. I went to a museum 2 weeks ago.
Mm,
Um, but I certainly am not ready to go to theater yet. I'm not ready to sit inside a movie theater yet. I'm I've had both shots. I'm past the 2 week, Moderna safety range.
mhm,
I think it'll take, a few weeks here, a few weeks there, and then we'll move. We'll see. It
yeah,
really is going to depend how many people get vaccinated to allow everyone to be more free. If people don't and they start refusing it, then we're going to be in trouble again. So
Yeah.
it just depends on everybody else.
Yeah, it's impossible to really predict. So you wrote a book about friendship,
Yes,
and I'm curious to hear more about that. Did you write the book during the pandemic, or had you already written that book
I worked
previously?
on it for the 2 years before the pandemic,
Oh, okay.
and then did a lot of the editing and rearranging during the start of the pandemic. So I was editing, because I edit more than I write.
Mm.
Um, and we got to, it went into publishing in November. It came out
Okay.
in November. So from the beginning of the pandemic, I was still editing the book and rewriting some things, and then it got published in November.
Okay. Nice. So I'm curious. I noticed that one of the story it's a collection of 13 short stories. And
Yep.
it's nonfiction. Is that
No,
correct?
it's all fiction.
It's fiction, sorry.
It's
So I
fiction, but there are a few stories that are nonfiction. I've identified the few that were nonfiction,
okay.
that actually happened. The It's very funny because I wrote a memoir a few years ago that
Mhm.
that came out, and people who've read the memoir are now searching through the memoir to see if they can find the people in the short stories.
What a
and,
compliment
and
that
who I
is to
read.
your
And there's some people that are calling and saying, "I didn't find myself in it. You didn't write about me, did you?"
Oh, that's so
So
funny.
it's very funny.
Oh my gosh. Well, I noticed one of the stories, I'm not sure if it's fiction or nonfiction, but it's dedicated to a friendship that you made when you were around 50 years old, or that the characters made when they were around 50. I think it was called the
Oh, the French Connection.
French Connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm
Well,
just
it's you know, a lot of them. I mean, there are three that are definitely nonfiction,
okay.
right? And I identified those.
Mhm.
The um, the French Connection comes out of a situation, but it is totally fictionalized.
Okay.
But it's based, as a lot of them are, on something that was real and that I then converted into fiction, and then
Got
it
it.
takes on its own life.
Okay.
You know,
Got it. Yeah.
but
I'm curious about your take on friendships that begin at midlife. You know, I'm about to move from I've lived in Pacifica, California for 10 years, and I'm about to move probably to a whole other community.
do you know
Um,
where?
like an I think well, we're trying to buy a house, and every time we make an offer, there are like 100 offers, and we haven't. I feel like it's like we're trying to win the lottery, only we're the ones giving someone else $1 million. It's like, um, but so we're hoping for Sonoma County. We're looking pretty intensely in this town called Sebastopol, and we really like. It's like a bit rural, but it also has a lot of culture. It's pretty liberal and has a lot of like restaurants and wineries and stuff like that. But it's kind of like I said, rural. But anyway, I'm like a little worried, about friendships. I've made all my friendships here, a lot of them through my daughter's school, and now I'm going to be switching. I'm going to be like the new person, and I'm kind of nervous about it. So I'm
You
very
can
curious
make
about
you can
your
make
take.
you can make friends at any age.
That's great to
Um,
hear.
at this moment in life, I have very few quote old friends.
Really?
Well, for your listeners, I'm 83, as the article says, and some close friends have passed away. Some close friends have moved away. Some we've disintegrated as friends for various
Mhm.
and sundry reasons, um, and which I think is best summed up in the first story in the book. But the it's hard to make deep friendships at any time in life.
Mhm.
There's surface friendships, they're deep friendships, and they're friendships just based on commonality of where you are at that moment, you know. So yes, you'll make friends, and you'll meet someone and you'll really click, and that'll become your friend for that period of time.
I hope so.
Um, it's never gone. I mean, because I've lost recently some very close friends, I'm hoping I do meet someone else who's going to be a close friend. And if I don't, that's it. But at your age, you're going to constantly make new friends. It never stops.
That's very encouraging. I love hearing that. Yeah.
Never
I mean, I
stops.
do have confidence that we'll meet people, and it's just it at this I've never been so nervous to move, you know? I feel like maybe it's just cuz I'm older, but we before we moved where we live now, we moved like I think 4 times in 5 years. I mean, within the same area though. It was just one of those things where we were renting and we kept losing our lease. Someone would sell the place, and we owned a place and sold it. There was just a lot of transition, but we've just been settled for so long that it seems sort of like a bigger deal. But I'm also excited about it.
Listen, I was 40 years in my loft,
Oh,
and
wow.
and then I moved, and
Wow.
that's quite a transition. That's probably about how old you are.
Well, I'm actually 52. I
Wow,
I have a
you look
ring light,
much
and I think
younger.
the ring light does a lot.
You look much younger.
Well, thank you. I mean, I don't mind. This was a whole thing in the previous podcast I recorded. I said what similar to what you just said to the guest. I said, "Oh, that was so long ago when you were in art school." She was like, "Yeah, it was a long time ago." I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Like it wasn't that long ago." She was like, "No, I'm proud to be 47. Like it was a long time ago and I'm cool with that, you know?" So, I'm it's a journey, being okay with your age and just sort of like owning
Listen,
it.
so we tell your listeners the full story. The original heading for your magazine had my age 1 year wrong,
Yes.
right?
Yes, and I'm
And I
so
went
sorry about that.
absolutely batty,
Oh my god, I'm so
and I
sorry.
was just no, no, no. I was hysterical at myself, saying, "You're really going to be this upset that she said 84 instead of 83?" And I was. So all it reminded me of was when my mother was very ill toward the end of her life, and I'm wheeling her into the emergency room
Oh.
on the stretcher, and she pulls me down. She says, "Do you think I should tell the nurses that I might have been born in 1901 instead of 1900?" I mean, and I went hysterical. And then I said, "Here you are, umpteen years later, and you are doing exactly the same thing as,
Oh my god.
as your mother."
Well,
Thank you
I'm
for
very glad
correcting
you
it,
can
though.
laugh about it now. I'm glad. Yeah, we have no control over our age, right? I mean, it's just and so might as well own it and,
Oh, you got
you
to
know,
own it. I
yeah,
mean, you put in the time,
absolutely. And
you put in the time.
that's an accomplishment. Yeah. So you've also written another book. I mean, you've written several books, but I know you've also written one about public speaking, and that's something that you're an expert in. And
That's my, I don't know, writing has become the vocation, but I'm still working as a communications coach. And I started that at the age of 50 for your reading.
okay, okay, that
So that was so a few years into working, everyone kept saying, "You've got to get a book, you've got to get a book." So I really sat down and worked like crazy and put together that book, which people are still using. Um,
I need it. I'm terrified of public speaking. I can do this because it feels just like you and me, but if getting it live in front of a bunch of people is totally terrifying to me. So I'm really
just keep on mind one thing: they don't care about you.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, the reality is that audiences really don't care about the speaker. The only time they care about the speaker is if the speaker is making them uncomfortable. And if
Oh.
you look nervous, you're making them uncomfortable.
Oh my
But
god, yes.
otherwise, you are not the center of attention.
Hmm.
even though you are standing there, you feel alone, you feel you are, but you're not. Because everyone, and think about just of yourself when you're in an audience, all you're really thinking about is, does what they say relate to you?
Yeah.
So the attention is always on the individual who's listening. They're not really caring or looking at you. They're thinking about you only in terms of themselves. So once you get over that and understand that, public speaking is easy.
Oh, wow. That's pretty genius. That's very helpful. I yeah. I mean, I've thought about that in social situations, like having a little anxiety about like going to a party where you don't know a lot of people. I've told that to myself, like they don't really care about you. Like they don't
They
care
don't.
that much
They
about what you're
really, it's your job to make them comfortable.
right. Oh, I love that. Well, thank you for that tip.
You are
That's a
very welcome.
wonderful. Um, and so we mentioned a little bit about all your careers that you have, and I'm so curious about how you got your start. And the mention in your bio of being an ad gal is so fascinating to me. I would love to hear more about that. And so maybe you could just take us through
So I
your
started
career.
out, well, I I started out as wanting to be an actor, musical comedy actor. That was my dream. And I um, went to Boston University Theater and got all the um, leads immediately. And so
Wow.
I go into detail in the memoir, but I got all these leads, and then the head director convinced my parents and myself that I go to professional school. So I didn't finish college, which is
Okay.
one big regret in my life. I have only one regret. That was it. And
Wow.
it's not for the degree as much as it would, I might have taken different paths. Um, I would have had more contacts.
Hmm.
It of course the learning, but I'm an avid reader, so I've developed a lot of that on my own. But it would have been that's a regret. But anyway, I went to professional acting school and worked professionally for a few years and really hated the life of an actor, hated it.
Really?
Um,
Why? What did you hate about it?
not being in control.
Okay. Yeah, I've actually heard that and
Not
read
being
that
in
a lot.
control, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and you have to remember we're going back 60 years. So times were different. You can't compare today to then.
Right.
Uh, so I had all these odd jobs to keep going. And one of them got me into an advertising agency.
Mm.
And basically because the boss liked my legs, not because of anything else. But once there, within a few months, I talked them into letting me develop the radio department for radio commercials. And Doyle Dane Bernbach, which was the advertising company at the time, was like the hip top. Bill Bernbach was God. This was the agency. And I stayed there and I developed that. But I'd always sculpt on the side. That had been
Oh,
my
wow.
sideline. And I got it into my head that no, that's what I had to do full time. So I left the agency
Oh, wow.
and became a sculptor full time for over 20 years.
Oh my god. That sounds
And
like a I mean, that sounds almost impossible, but that's amazing that you did that.
did it. And worked, supported myself sometimes from sales, sometimes from being an extra in commercials and films because I
Hmm.
had union cards from when I was acting.
Hmm.
So that kept me going. And then at the age of 48, I literally burned out. I
Mm.
just burned out. And I'm not going to go into all the things that occurred, but I just burned out. And at, I guess, 49, went to a shrink. Um, to find a way back. And at the age of 50, opened my doors as a communication coach, taking everything I'd learned as an actor, taking everything I'd learned in advertising, because I directed um, all the commercials and hired the actors and did the directing,
Mhm.
and didn't know what I was doing when I started, literally didn't know what I was doing, learned on the way, um, and worked at it until I could write a book. 6 years, 7 years after no, 7 years after I started, I put the book out, and still I'm working but not the same. I don't do the workshops anymore. I work more privately or with companies, just if they have a major presentation, and videos and things like that. But
Okay.
that's the history.
Wow. Can we go back to the ad agency really quick? It sounds a little bit Mad Men. Was it that sort of
Oh,
environment?
absolutely.
Really?
Totally Mad Men.
Wow.
100% Mad Men.
Wow. And so being the being a woman starting a whole new department must have been a huge deal.
Well, no one thought it was real. I mean, they treated it
Oh,
as this was a joke, but it
really?
became real. When we started winning awards, it became real. So,
Wow. That
you
sounds
know,
very sort of typical of the era. I mean, just based on the show, which is I know not reality, but
no, but the fun part is that in reality, the show takes place in the mid-50s to 60. This was 65.
okay, so a little bit
So
later.
it's a little past, but not really. I mean, it was
Yeah,
still all going on. It was
yeah.
all going on, you know.
Well, it
I
seems
had
like
I had an account guy who, in a meeting with me, I was arguing with him, but
mm,
in a very quiet voice because you had to if you wanted to get. And he starts screaming, banging on the desk, saying, "You women, you are so emotional," and he's screaming all over the place, and that
oh god.
typified to me the era.
Wow. Wow. And that's so ironic. He's screaming at you, calling you emotional.
And he's
So
he's red in the
typical.
face. He'd had 3 martinis, and that was it.
Oh my god. So
So,
that really was the,
it really was.
norm to just
Yeah,
be having cocktails all day?
yeah. Well,
Wow.
afternoon. Yeah,
Afternoon.
the lunch.
The lunch.
Lunch was
Got it.
you were fine if you had your meetings in the morning. The afternoon was a little dicey.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I'm also curious. I'm very interested in fashion and style. I'm curious, like, what was a typical outfit that you would wear to work?
Oh, listen, I ran into problems because I wanted to wear a pantsuit,
Oh, really?
um, and they were having tremendous problems. It took a lot of fighting for the agency to let women wear slacks.
Wow. Wow. Did
Finally, we
you
got there. We got there.
you did? What did
I
you have
wore
to do?
skirts and I wore slacks, but it took a battle.
Wow. And that was in the mid-60s.
Yep.
Wow, that's crazy. It must be very interesting to look back and see how much has changed in work for women in particular. You know, how how women are perceived and
It's
just what
still a battle.
it's
It's
still a
still a
battle.
battle. It's still a battle. Um, yes, it's better. Obviously, it's better. But we had, there's a few women at the agency that were very prominent. That I'm thinking of two of the female copywriters who were tops in the field and respected highly. You did have women, especially in advertising, who had made their marks in the creative area.
Mhm.
Uh, Not so much in the account area, but certainly in the creative area. Um, but it was still men at the top.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
there was no question about that. But it's getting better. But is it better yet? Are we there? No, we're
We're
not
not
there.
there. No, I
No.
feel that
The
too.
whole diversity, getting the people of color in there, it's not there yet.
No. Yeah,
Not
it's
there yet.
clearly not. What do you have any I don't I mean I don't know how far down this road we want to go, but I'm just curious what if you have a take on um, what what are like the holdout issues for women at work? Like what? Because now we can wear what we want now. It's not taboo. It's not as big of a deal for a woman to run a department or something like that. But what do you see as the most difficult issues?
I think getting right to the top, getting enough
Yeah.
people in position of, um, I don't like the word power, but of governing, that they're there making the decisions. And that's still, we're not there. We're just not there.
No, I mean clearly we're not. When I mean it was an enormous deal for Kamala to become vice president. I mean, and she's the first one we've had. It's clearly
And
it
we'll
shouldn't.
see
Why
if
is
she
this a
can make president. We'll see.
yeah? I hope so. I hope so. So, so I'm curious when you made your transition, when you were around 50, starting your new company. Did you feel like you were making this change later in life, or did you still feel like you were, you know, young? Or how did that feel?
Um, well, a few things. What I remember most is my desperation.
Oh. Mhm.
And that to me was primary because I had had no marketable skills at that point. You know, advertising had totally changed. There was no way I
Mm.
was going back into that after so many years away. Um, so I just remember desperation.
Mm.
Um, I have never felt my age,
Mhm.
ever. No, that's not true. I've had a lot of medical bouts. I'm trying to find a good way, which I've come back from each time. But while they were happening, um, I aged at that moment. And then when I got back, I'm back to being young again in my head. I know I'm saying this to a mommy, but I haven't had children. And I think not that they age you, but because they age, you see you see yourself aging with them
Mhm.
because your
Yeah.
role changes. My role has never changed.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So that there's this, I have a harder time accepting the fact that I am not young than, that to me is a problem. I still see myself in my 40s. I know I'm not. I mean, I can look in the mirror and know I'm not 40. But in my head, I'm 46. That's it.
Yeah,
But
that's
there are
interesting.
days when you wake up and the body isn't doing what it once did. And then you say, I guess I'm not 46 anymore.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that I felt old at that point. I just was desperate. That's
Hmm.
all I remember about that period. And a few years into the business, really starting to get some grounding, I came down with colon cancer,
Oh,
and
wow.
and was caught in time. No thanks to the doctors, but it was caught in time. And but I lost 3 friends from it the following year, and
Really?
I was fine. So I mean, there are those periods where you don't think you're coming back, and
Wow.
you know,
How old were you when
here I
that
am,
how old were you at that point?
55.
Okay, so this is I found out recently that I'm adopted, but I found out recently that my biological mother, died of colon cancer at 63. So that's become a concern for me all of a sudden because I just discovered this information
Just
within the
get
past year.
just get that full colonoscopy regularly. Period.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. It's
no
it's
matter
important.
what.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. I haven't done it. I actually have not done it yet, but
Oh, you have to
I
do it.
I I will. I will. Well, they do
I
the
mean, when we hang up the phone, you are going to make that call.
okay. Okay. I will. Well,
I
you
am
know,
very, let me tell you the difference, all right?
okay.
We're not getting off this subject because
Okay.
this is close to my heart. Um, One of the people who passed away was a brilliant illustrator, and no one in his family had told him that he had uncles that had, because no one talked about it. It was like,
Taboo.
a shame, taboo. So by the time he found out, it was too late.
Oh, wow. I think I misspoke just now. Did I say mother, biological mother? It was my biological grandmother. So
Makes no difference. It
it's still,
makes no difference.
yeah, it's still, I know it's still a genetic
It
issue.
makes
Yes.
no difference.
Got it.
You are
Definitely
going
noted.
immediately to get a colonoscopy. It's no
Okay.
big deal. You're going to do it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, I will do it.
I'm so serious. I cannot even begin to tell you.
I will do it. I promise.
And
Thank you.
the gastro guy that I went to originally saying something, I kept saying something was wrong, and he kept saying, "Oh, you're just a type A personality.
Oh my god.
There's nothing wrong. You're just type A." And and I screamed until someone listened to me, and then there was this thing growing that
Oh my
luckily had not burst. Another few weeks, I'd have been gone.
wow.
So you are going
Okay,
to
I'm
get
going.
a
I promise.
colonoscopy.
I promise. Cross my heart.
Thank you.
Yes. And I can't help but wonder if the doctor would have responded to you that way if you were a man. If
Absolutely not.
yeah, that's really a problem, because I
Yeah,
think that still
yeah,
happens.
it still happens.
Yeah.
This was what, 1992.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That to me, that doesn't even feel like that long ago. I know it was a long time ago, but I
It isn't
graduated
that
from
long ago.
college in '91. So,
So
wow.
you're going to get that.
I'm
So we'll
going. I
change the subject.
promise.
Okay, good.
My biological mother said the same. We've been emailing and she said the same thing. She's like, "This is your reminder. Please go," because she had just had hers. So, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I
Thank
have
you.
had those little where you have to mail the thing. I've done that, and it said it was clear, but I guess obviously it's a more, thorough test to go get the colonoscopy.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Okay. I will do it, I promise. Well, I'm very glad that you were so
I'm here.
insistent that you're here, that you were so insistent with the doctor. It's just really evidence that you have to really stand up for yourself and push for when you really feel that something is going on. And that is something I've discussed a lot with other guests and just other midlife women, regarding menopause. There's so many symptoms that are just sort of poo pooed sometimes by doctors. And I know you obviously went through menopause much.
Very, it wasn't as bad as some people.
Okay. We were lucky. Yeah.
I was lucky. I remember a period of hot flashes,
Hmm.
but it wasn't as long, or as, at least I don't remember it that way,
Okay. Well,
at
you're
all.
lucky. Yeah. A lot of people suffer a fair amount. I had a lot of really bad hot flashes. So I started taking hormones. And I don't have hot flushes anymore. It's been very helpful. Everybody's different, you have to make that decision. But yeah, it's just a good reminder that you have to stand up for yourself, because a lot of doctors are very uninformed about menopause because they're seeing a million people, men and women, different ages. So it's very hard for them to stay on top of everything. But anyway, um, so what are your plans for going forward? What are your plans for the future for the next few years
That's an
as we come out of
interesting
the
question.
pandemic?
That's a
Sorry.
very good question. That's a
Yeah.
good question. I've been working on that answer. I haven't got the answer yet, totally.
Okay.
The writing will continue one form or another. I'm just not sure. I've been during COVID, doing a lot of essays, but I'm not sure how much of that I'm going to continue, or if I'm starting something new. I'm not sure about what I'm going to be working on from a writing point of view. I'm certainly doing work with companies still on presentation, and I'm getting involved where I can in some non-for-profit volunteering.
Oh, that's great.
You know, but I don't have a clear picture yet. All I do know is that if I'm not working, I'm not a happy camper.
Mm-hmm.
And so I I think because if you're someone, there's a friend of mine, we were discussing this recently. She's worked 9 to 5 in an office, one form or another, for most of her life.
Mm-hmm.
She's 16 years younger than I am. So she's retired now and loves the fact that she can go anywhere, do anything, the freedom.
Yeah.
Because I was my own boss all these years, from the time I left the agency, I wasn't 9 to 5. Um, I don't need that kind of time. I need to have work. I'm used to
Yeah.
work and life balance,
I
and
I
that's
feel
what I
that
need.
way myself. It's so strange. Uh, I mean, I get it. My husband works full time. It's really intense for him. He's on the phone all day,
What
every
does he
day.
do?
He works in AI. It's sort of on the business side of it. He's not a scientist or anything, but he does sort of the business side of AI, like hooking up companies to use the AI. And so it's very busy. It's a very
Active.
in demand technology right now, and he is very much looking forward to retiring one day, and he hopes it's not in the very far future. And at the same time, I am like looking for chances to work wherever I can grab minutes to work. I'm like, let me work, please.
Well,
It's so,
that's me. That's the
yeah,
same
I
thing.
totally get that.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I literally beg people. I gotta do something.
Yeah, I totally understand that, and I think about when I'm older, I hope that that I can continue to work. Like I don't have that. Like I mean, I love going on vacations and having time off and everything, but I hope that when I am in my 70s, 80s, that I am doing something where I can still work, where I can still feel like what I'm doing is useful to someone, or can continue to be creative. That's sort of a big part of it for me too. I'm curious if you still do, sculpting.
No,
Not really?
no, 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 no. Hold on. No. And I compiled it
Oh, wow.
in a whole. Okay. So there's a whole book of all the sculptures, and I put that together 2 years ago, I guess, 3 years ago.
Oh, that looks beautiful. Is that, a book that are you selling that book?
No, I put it together myself, and I did it through one of these book companies where you can do it, and it
Yeah.
turned into a very expensive book because
Oh,
it's over 100 pages with multitude of images and writing and everything else. So what I did was I contacted people who owned my work and friends and said, does anyone want it? And I put together a list of people, so we got enough to get the first printing at a reasonable price because of quantity.
oh, got it,
But
yeah.
it's just, I'd have to order an enormous, and people have asked for it, and I have like 2 copies left, and I can't do that,
It would
because
be a really expensive book to buy if you were
oh,
gonna
yeah, yeah,
sell
it's
it.
a very expensive book to do. You can, anyone could buy it online, but it's a ridiculous price.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So, do you still have a lot of your sculptures in your home?
I have a few because when I left the loft, where I still had a lot of the large pieces, um, different people took those that were left. The bulk of the work had sold over the years, etc. The but the pieces I had that were very large, I knew I couldn't take with me.
Okay.
They were just, there was no way I was going to do that. So I found homes for a few of those, And you'll get to a story about which is fictionalized, sort of, in the book of friendships. It's written as if they were emails, and
Okay.
you'll come across that story. But that was based on something, but it's fictionalized. But I found homes for those, and only brought pieces with me that I knew size wise, because I didn't know where I was going. I could still have. So I have 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 or 8 here, plus all the drawings and that are, big drawings, etc. But my camera is attached to the computer screen, so
Oh,
I can't take you around and show them to you.
that's okay. Maybe we can, if you have any photographs of them, maybe we can run a few photographs with the podcast when I
I
publish it.
certainly have some. Yep, I
Okay,
can
great.
absolutely do that.
Great. And we'll definitely include links to all of your work that you've done,
Great.
your
And the
website.
website, we've just updated the website.
Oh,
So the website is brand new, all updated, everything's on it.
wonderful.
So
Wonderful.
that's it.
Great. Well, Margot, thank you so much for chatting with me today. It has been
Thank you.
so lovely.
And good luck with the move.
Thank
And
you so much.
don't worry about friendships, and go have the colonoscopy, please.
Takeaways from this conversation. Absolutely.
Takeaways.
I will do it. I promise. I promise.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Margot. Take
Wonderful.
care.
Thank you.